It's curious, just arriving today. So Susan and we made this move from a mountain down here to the valley, which is always takes longer and more complicated than one would think. I think I need that front loading of optimism to do something like that. And usually I arrive here very early because it's so far, and you're kind of concerned that it'll take, we have some traffic or something will happen. So I always get that, it's so far away and then getting here early. And then today it was like, we're so close, we arrived here almost a little bit late. It's just like, it's just down the road, And then, so we're adapting to the desert. And it's curious where we are. This balcony on the apartment, and I can go outside and I can just see the mountain. To see, I'm not shaking my fist. I'm just gonna look up and see the mountain. But I see the snow-capped mountains now, and very beautiful. And but also relieved that I'm not going to be shoveling any snow this season, right? And I know it must be. I'm conscious, and people sometimes remind me that it's like, you move to the desert at this time of year, and you could be a little spoiled before I know the heat's going to come. But I'll worry about that when that gets here. It's not here now. Pleasure to be back here with you. I know it's been a little while with this move. I wanted to bring up a Zen koan from the tradition. I'm very much interested in, after 20 years on the mountain and at a Zen center, 20 years for me and for Susan, maybe 15 years, to be able to, what was learned there, what was that for, what was realized, and be able to hopefully transmit the heart of what the formal tradition transmits. How then to express that and to have that be real out here in hustle and bustle of everyday life now down in the valley. It's a transmission of the Dharma that we're interested in, and we started our own kind of vehicle for this, for meditation, we called it Becoming Ordinary. And that's my great spiritual ambition and calling now, is to become completely ordinary and anonymous in the world. Being ordinary, though, is that can be an extraordinary thing, to be really at home in the ordinary. I'm going to bring up the koan, which is from the Book of Equanimity, which is perhaps my favorite collection of the Zen koans. And this is case 12, again a classic that's drawn from the Tang Dynasty China, the so-called golden age of Zen, when Zen really proliferated and was the main spiritual tradition of an entire country at that time. Came with its own downside as well. The main case is attention. So monk Jizo asked Shuzan, "Where did you come from?" Shuzan replied, "I came from the south." Jizo said, "How is the Buddha Dharma down south these days?" And Shuzan answered, "There's a lot of debate going on." Jizo said, "Well, here it's better for me to plant the fields, make rice balls, and eat." Shuzan asked, "What about the three worlds?" And Jizo said, "What is it that you call in the three worlds?" So in a classic Zen koan from the later Tang Dynasty. I've been doing some reading about this era because I really draw on it for talking, for teaching, for Heart of Zen, this wonderful period in China. And like all periods in human history, there's a growth and a flourishing, and then an ebbing and a decaying and a passing away. Right? It's familiar in pretty much all aspects of our life. This happened too for what was formal Zen in China. When I was studying Zen, I was reading like what happened with the classic age. Well, then it became the influence of Pure Land Buddhism, and there's a lot of political problems with the spiritual organizations getting too close to the politicians. And then there's an emperor came along in the latter part of the 9th century in China who was stridently anti-Buddhist, and decided to return, saw it as a foreign import, and wanted to return it to its Taoist and Confucian roots, so that there was actually a persecution at the government level of Buddhism in the later 9th century. That very much contributed to the decline of Chan Buddhism. But like many things, there's more than, like all things, there's more than one side to that story, right? I also, in doing some deeper reading, discovered that, well, it turns out that the monasteries which had become so successful and so large and many people, they owned a lot of land and they didn't pay any tax. Right, so it became like a kind of like a little tax haven, and started to become a little wealthy, and a lot more people. It gets more structure, and it became the temples apparently became so powerful that they rivaled the state in terms of political power. Right, so when there's a change of hands with in the political order and the ruling dynasty, then there was a real change there. So again, human beings, human nature, it never changes, and organizations and religions and spiritual traditions all face the same ingredients and the same challenges. This koan is taken from this later Tang period after the major persecution of Buddhism. And again, from what I read, at that time, when Buddhism was kind of on the outs, that the lineages of Zen, there was a renewal where a lot of the teachers basically reinvigorated the original asceticism and standards of behavior for monks and teachers. So it's like, yes, you can live at a temple, you can study Zen, you can live this, but you have to walk it like you talk it. So not accepting, a lot of gifts, or a lot of money, or like living in more material ways, but a return to the more ascetic Buddhist tradition. And so that was a smaller amount of people who wanted to practice in that way. There's a slimming down, right? But that's how the original lineage blew up and then slimmed down through that process. And that's the lineage then that continued through China the next several centuries, into Japan, in the case of Zen, and then into the United States. And I can then see how my own lineage plugs into this. But it's interesting to me that I have to kind of go digging and reading and look for different sources and then to shine a light on this. And then what I find there is it's just like, wow, there's really nothing new under the sun. With human beings, with organizations of human beings. And yeah, I would say that this heart of the Dharma, the original essence of what was transmitted from India to China, to Japan, to the United States, that's the important aspect. Is like, what is the core of the teaching, and how to bring that alive. So this koan is really talking about this. We have a teacher here, Jizo, and he's asking a new visitor, or somebody who's arrived at the temple, where did you come from? In the Zen tradition, this is usually this means something a little deeper than, where did you come from? Well, I came from Los Angeles, or I came down from San Francisco, or I came from, right? And it was often used as a way to see if somebody was serious or not about joining the temple or being involved in the practice of Zen, and also to just reveal some, maybe if someone has something deeper, a deeper question or a deeper insight. He's asking him in this case, so where did you come from? So this is can be on the surface a very kind of general getting to know you question, or if we look deeper, it's really a very deep existential question. Like, where did you come from? Where did this come from? Where did this life come from? Where does it go to? Does it go to or come from anywhere at all? What is the meaning of this? If we take that question and really look under the hood, right? Where did you come from? Of course, I could fill that in. Well, I came from, Wales in the UK originally, and I came from, and tell the story, and that's good for, again, getting to know you. It's good for in certain settings. But in a core essential question, that's the question, a koan, an essential question, a core question, where do you come from? When we look at that, it's much more difficult to say. Right? If we trace our life back to, when did I first become aware of being this one here? When did I become aware of the world? Right? A lot of us will look back, maybe we have an early childhood memory, like sometimes we can focus in on that. Like, what was my first memory? When I look at that for myself, I remember my first memory that I could trace to a time and pinpoint was a Christmas day, and I must have been 3 or 4 years old, or something very, very young, and The Wizard of Oz was on. And I can remember the table, what the dining table looked like, and I can remember my family there, and I can remember that, that'll stick in your mind, The Wizard of Oz, right? I can remember that. But before that, how about before that and before that? Like, curiously, we just arrive in this world. And we're here. And we've been here for some time. Right? But so are all of this whole long tradition of Zen. I'm looking back here 1,200 years ago with people talking about these questions of life and human experience. And those people have all come and gone. Right? And we know that we come and go too. And yet this world, this vastness, this continues. It's continued from then to now, seamlessly, without pause or interruption, and continues on. So it's a very deep question as where do you come from? But Shuzan here says, I came from the south. Like just the straightforward or practical answer. I came from the south. And this would be, the south was the more populated area of China in this era. The north would be where a lot of these slimmed down lineage Chan teachings were still continuing in the far mountains and out in the boonies. I came from the south. And he asks him, how's the Buddha Dharma down south? How's the Buddha Dharma these days? And with just a preface of what I was saying with all of the political intrigue and the persecution of Buddhism, there's probably, there's a lot to say about that. How is the Buddha Dharma down south these days? It's said that the sixth ancestor of Zen, all of the modern lineages flow through the sixth ancestor of Zen, that when he traveled north to enter a temple for the first time, he was questioned upon wanting to enter the temple, and that the monk said to him, where are you from? He said, I'm from the south. He said, don't you know that people from the south don't have Buddha nature? Right, so kind of, prejudice and racism were just kind of alive and well in that time, like they are now, unfortunately. don't you know people from the south don't have Buddha nature? And the sixth ancestor, as a young man, responded, don't you know that in Buddha nature there is no north or south? There's no north or south in Buddha nature. And so he was allowed to enter the temple. It's like, okay, this person maybe has some understanding. So, but he answers Shuzan says here, I came from the south. You know, well, how's the Buddha Dharma down there? There's a lot of debate going on. So, you know, just very everyday conversation to this point. There's a lot of conversation going on about the Buddha Dharma. That happens within Dharma organizations. You know, there's discussion that's going on. You know, yesterday we had, for ICD, we had a board meeting, right? There's necessary discussion. Some of our fine board members will be serving out their term soon and leaving. And then some fine people will be joining. And there's organisation, there's words that need to be exchanged, there's details that need to be worked out. But is that really the business of the Buddha Dharma? Like, what is the business of the Buddha Dharma? Is that something special or distant or something more elevated? Like, what is the business of the Buddha Dharma? If we look at that word, Buddha Dharma, and translate it, you know, Buddha means awakened. The Buddha was called the awakened one. Something very straightforward, something simple, but also something beautiful and remarkable. A person who is wide awake right now here. That's the business that we're involved in practice. That's our Dharma practice. This is why we sit for 30 minutes. Okay, no matter how busy my life is, or how many errands I got to run later, or all of these ups and downs, and all of these machinations and complications, for this period of time, for this 30 minutes, be present, wide awake, right here now. And that wide awake right here now can look pretty sleepy. But it's so, wide awake doesn't mean eyes wide open, too many cups of coffee, right? Wide awake is, are you here? Are you here? Involved as this, living here now. That's Buddha. Buddha Dharma, and then we bring in the Dharma, the teachings of the appearances of life, the whole of the world. This is the Buddha Dharma. So we can discuss, we can talk about the Dharma, but that's always one step away. That's always a derivative. That's always one place removed. Right? The direct expression and the living of the Buddha Dharma is always this now, however that content appears, wherever you are, right? Whether we're meeting in a semi-formal arrangement, we're coming together for sitting, or we talked about maybe going on retreat in the spring, or whether we're at the gas station of a grocery store, or, God forbid, the airport, right? That is still directly, it's all Buddha Dharma. It's all awake, present experience. How's the Buddha Dharma down south? There's a lot of debate going on. So he kind of misses maybe the deeper implication of that question. Isn't the Buddha Dharma the same in the south as it is in the north, as it is in the east and the west? So Shuzan Jizo, rather, the teacher here responds, here it's better for me to plant the fields, make rice balls and eat. That's his business. And he's apparently the abbot of this particular collection of monks perhaps nuns, right? Here it's better for me to plant the fields, make rice balls and eat. That's his Buddha Dharma. Again, it said that in this era, then, the practitioners, the monks and the nuns, you have to take care of yourself. It's like you have to be self-sufficient. And so they had to work and grow their own food in order to survive. Not getting any support from outside, not getting any aristocratic support, as formerly it started to take place, or governmental state support. It's like if you want to eat, you have to plant the rice. But this returns, Zen and Chan very much to it's Chinese, in bringing in the Taoist influences of that time and the Confucian elements of that time, which is very practical, down-to-earth, ordinary activity. They didn't spend time in begging for food, which had been an import from the original Indian tradition, where you'd go out and you'd beg for alms. But that didn't fly in this area in China. So they became farmers, planters. This is where the famous Zen statement came, a day without work is a day without food, as an expression of living at a Zen temple. And that kind of tradition, the sense of like working hard and making real effort, is something that's continued in, at least continued in the Zen organization I'm a part of. Same thing, hard work, or make effort. But in taking care of this, what is it for you? You're planting the fields, making rice, and eating rice. And then what follows next? Clearing up and taking care. Right? That circle or that cycle of needing to, for me, I plant the fields, make rice balls, and eat. You could say, well, I get up in the morning, make coffee, brush my teeth, and go to work. That's the Buddha Dharma. Right? That's the Buddha Dharma. Exactly. Taking care of what needs to be taken care of. Matching what the world brings us, how the world is unfolding us, and engaging with that directly. This doesn't land for Shuzan, who says, well, what about the three worlds? Right? Maybe studied some Buddhism. Right? I looked it up. Like, what are the three worlds again? Because in Buddhism is very rich with 3 this, 8 that, 6 of these, and 4 of the other. Right? And sometimes it's like, we've got to do the Eightfold Path in January, and then we'll do the 10, so we have these numbers, and they're very useful to have these teaching approaches that helps to delineate a way. As human beings, it's very effective for us to follow like a linear way. The Buddha was very skillful in articulating that. The 4 Noble Truths, and then the Eightfold Path. Right? In Zen, they say that's a prescription written on a 1,000-year-old piece of paper. Right? And that was written 1,000 years ago, so now it's a prescription written on a 2,000-year-old piece of paper. The 3 worlds. So in classical Buddhism, apparently these 3 worlds are the worlds of the world of desire. Yep, desire gets its own world in Buddhism, right? So the world of desire, the world of form, and the world of formlessness. This is one version of the 3 worlds. The world of desire. Now, I was reading a little about that. Like, what's considered the world of desire? And we know in classic Buddhism 101 that the Buddha realizes that material satisfaction does not satisfy absolutely. Right? Just pursuing things, like if I get the nicer car, if I get the bigger apartment, if I get... There's a ceiling that we hit pretty soon. I remember looking at one of those studies that was talking about happiness and how miserable it is to be very poor and have not enough. And then how that changes as people are brought out of poverty, and happiness, you know, a sense of satisfaction tends to increase until you hit about middle class or upper middle class, and then it starts to stall. It's not that it goes kind of exponentially up, which I'm kind of glad about. That's kind of nice, right? So we have this kind of like material satisfaction is not ultimately going to make us happy. We know that. But the world of desire, if we look at it with more of a Zen lens and drill in on that, why does it get its own world? Well, we could say the world of wanting things to be different than they are. That's like really the core of this world of desire is, as a human being, I want things to be different than what they are. I really mean that. Like, I really want things to be different than what they are. Is that true for you too? Like, in small ways and in big ways. But it's not. The world is not different than what it is. My life is not different the way that I would want it ideally to be. Right? So we don't never, it's a whole world because we never really escape that as human beings. This is just the core aspect of the human tradition, of human condition. This world of desire, of the world of not quite accepting life as it is. And again, not that that's wrong, it is just being human. To not fully, to be able to accept things as they are, or to suffer with that, to have difficulty with that. We're all working with that in one way or another. And the world of form, that one's pretty easy to point out, the world of form, the world of things. Right? And how we attach to forms and become intoxicated with forms and things, cling to things in the world. Right? We get attached to form. But our old friend / enemy impermanence has something to say about the world of form. Nothing lasts. Everything's changing. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is ultimately dependable in the world of form. The world of formlessness is maybe a little bit more of a spiritual malady. I'm not sure how many of you are attached to the world of formlessness. You know, for me in my Zen training, it was like there's this prohibition against don't get attached to emptiness. You know, like non-duality or kind of hanging out in emptiness. And I always have a question about that, like, why not? I mean, that seems to be where a lot of the suffering disappears. Or like, maybe can I hang out there for a while and I promise to come back at some point? The world of formlessness. But we can see if we have some like realization of that, of like emptiness, that you can't live there. You can't stay there. The world moves you on. The world will always shift you from any, right? If we fall into a place of, it's all one. Apparently there was somebody who had a very deep experience with my Zumi Roshi, my kind of grandfather in the lineage of Yokoji, had a very deep experience of emptiness, or what we might call non-duality, right? Where subject and object falls away, self and other disappears, all of the good stuff, all of the Christmas lights of Dharma experience occurs, you know, and they have this very deep experience, and they said to him, if I can maintain this, will you give me Dharma transmission? Which means, will you make me a teacher? And apparently my Zumi Roshi said, if you can maintain this, they said, if I can maintain this for 2 weeks, will you give me Dharma transmission? And he said, if you can maintain this for 3 days, I'll give you Inca. And Inca is like final seal of approval, Zen master. Right? It's like we can't hold on. In our spiritual practice, we may arrive at places where, you know, in a valid way, we drop off a lot of identity. We drop off some of our attachment, but it's not somewhere we can live. Life will always disavow us of any kind of like our attainments and our ideas about the Dharma. And that's healthy. That's a healthy thing. You know, we can, again, anything that we realize in sitting, in Dharma practice, let it go. Just drop it off and let it go. It's much better to give it away than have it twisted out of your hands. So, you know, Shuzan here, what about the free worlds? What about all of this Dharma teaching? Gee, what do you mean you're just growing rice and eating? Is that it? That's the Buddha Dharma? What about the free worlds? What is it that you're calling the free worlds? Like, where are these worlds? Where is this world of form? The world of desire, the world of formlessness. Another way we could look at the three worlds is past, present, and future. How much of that runs our life, past, present, and future? I'm already worried about Christmas, you know, just like Oliver moving and so, and then we got to get the flights and the whatnot, and you know, start thinking past, present, and future, and how much those things, how much there is to do with that. But where is the past? Where is the past? You could say, well, it's gone, but it's like, well, not really, because I remember watching The Wizard of Oz. It's here, the past. You know, the present, where is that? Did you ever find anything called a moment of a present moment? We talk about that a lot, present of a moment, but where is it? Where is it? How do you find that? Past, present, and the future. The future that never comes, but it's here. We're already thinking about tomorrow, next week. And the goal of Zen and practice is not to cut off past and future so that we're blinkered into some must stay completely aware of traffic noise, present awareness, right? Maybe we have to do that when we're out of sync, when we're lost in the past and lost in the future, right? And then we kind of get stuck there, and so we have to correct that. This is why we sit. We come back and we correct from living in the past, living in the future, getting distracted with our thoughts and our stories. And so we correct it by just come back to this still point of awareness here, where past, present, and future are appropriately arranged. Right? There's no problem with the past, there's no problem with the present or the future. Don't worry about the world of desire, the world of form, or the world of formlessness. Just take care of this now. Be here now, take care of this now. Not looking for something special, called the Buddha Dharma, and not demeaning something ordinary, like making rice balls here. Right? The ordinary business of our lives, which is an extraordinarily special thing. Right? It's like we turn the calendar on the page, and now what? Tomorrow we pass into December, the 12th month of the year. Where did 2025 go? Right? On that level, it's just all rushing by like a river. And yet this constancy of this like eternal present, this constant appearance of this now, seamlessly, always here, always continues. And we can always live here, have that be the place of refuge. When we're lost in the doings and the toings and froings and all of the noise of people and things and the world, all of the many ways our attention gets hooked and fixed and distracted, just remember, Zen, Dharma, it's so absurdly simple and straightforward. Stop. Just stop already. Take some time, sit down, look, allow, and relax, for goodness sake, right? Just let go, renew, come back to this. And look right here. Just be right here. Not in order to attain something new, but to rediscover the essential stillness and peace and liberation which is at the root of this experience. That's so. And that's worth something. That's worth a lot. Okay, well, I'm going to pause at that point and open it up for question, for comment, anything that you'd like to ask or share. And please feel encouraged. Yes. Okay, well, I realized we ran over a little bit. Thank you everyone on Zoom for being patient too. And let's close with going forth. Ian kindly wrote the closing. I'll see if I can pull it up and post it in the chat here. Okay, let's close with our going forth. Read together. Going forth into this world, so in need of light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world, so in need of light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. Thank you, Amy, putting the donation link in the chat. Just a reminder for Dharma, for the organisation, and to keep an eye on the website for everything that's coming up. Really good to be back here in person, to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, please take good care.